Disney cruises are one of the most popular cruise options available. Disney is known for their incredible ships, which offer a long list of ways to spend your time aboard. They've got live performances, restaurants, and themed pools that are cool enough to make anyone feel like a kid no matter how old you are. Working on one of these ships is on a lot of people's goal lists, and it's pretty easy to see why you would want to. But sometimes, working on a Disney cruise can come at a high cost. My name is Brienne, and I'm the host and creator of Among the Dirt and Trees, a show where we explore true crime cases that occur out in nature. In today's episode, we're going to talk about Rebecca Coriam, a young crew member who worked on the Disney Wonder until she disappeared in 2011 under mysterious circumstances. I don't know about you guys, but I have always wanted to go on a Disney cruise. Obviously, everything Disney is pretty great, and it is well known that they spare no expense, but I definitely love the idea of their shows specifically. And some of the water slide pictures look pretty awesome too. As someone who definitely plans to spend their time traveling for work as soon as it gets a little safer out there, I can definitely understand the draw of wanting to work on a cruise ship. And I'm sure that a lot of you can too. But is working on an awesome cruise ship worth dying over? I don't think so. And the more that I read about people who disappear on these cruise ships, the more afraid of them I become. When she disappeared, Rebecca was 24 years old. Even though she was young, she had a long list of accomplishments behind her. Rebecca joined the British Army Cadets, went to school to study sports science, and worked at a youth camp too. Disney cruises were the next big step for her, and it seemed like she loved it. But at the point where she disappeared, she didn't seem very happy at all. The last footage found of Rebecca showed her on the phone with someone, and she was visibly distressed. In fact, she was so clearly upset that one of her coworkers decided to stop by and ask her if she was okay. She claimed that she was fine, but everyone seems to agree that that probably wasn't the case. One day after the ship left port in Los Angeles, she disappeared. When Rebecca's family didn't hear from her, they got worried. And by this point, the Disney Wonder staff already knew that something was wrong. Rebecca never showed up for her shift, and none of the other crew members could find her. The footage of Rebecca's phone call was timestamped just before 6 a.m., a fact which later conflicted with Disney's reports that she fell overboard in the middle of the night. The police and a few other groups were called to investigate Rebecca's disappearance, but they only spoke with a few people while they were investigating. It wasn't much of an investigation at all, at least not if you ask her friends and family. The US Coast Guard and the Mexican Navy were called out to search the waters, but they didn't find anything. The official belief is that she fell overboard, but her coworkers and family think that there might be more to the story here. Subsequent investigations proved that there was definitely something suspicious going on. When privately interviewed, several crew members openly admitted that Disney knew more about Rebecca's disappearance than they were letting on. They were convinced that something happened, and that Disney made sure that there was no evidence of it. According to the cruise line, Rebecca was likely at the pool when a large wave came in and swept her out over the side of the boat. It is possible for very large waves to surface in the ocean, but there's one big flaw in the story. The pool area was surrounded by large walls that would make sweeping her out of it nearly impossible. Of course, that isn't to say that it didn't happen, especially if the walls were slick. To prove their theory, the cruise line claimed that they found Rebecca's flip-flop in the area, proving that she was likely there and just swept away. There was just one problem with that. The shoe wasn't hers at all. It wasn't her style, it wasn't her size, and later reports even said that it clearly had another crew member's name on it. Not that it matters, but the description of it did not sound cute, so. The crew and her family think that something else happened instead. Something that Disney doesn't want anyone to know about. According to a member of the crew, the entire cruise ship is absolutely covered in hidden cameras. They said that basically any part of the ship, especially the public spaces, would be visible and monitored. So, why is it that the last footage of Rebecca only shows her on the phone? What happened to the rest of the footage, particularly the parts that might reveal what happened to her? When promised anonymity, crew members disclosed that they think Disney intentionally destroyed the footage, fearing what would happen if it was released. At some point, Disney sent another piece of footage to the FBI, but the footage was never shared, so we don't know what's on it. Could it be the footage that shows what truly happened to Rebecca? Is it possible that Disney just didn't want the public to have access to footage of a woman going overboard on their boat because it's bad for publicity? Rebecca's distressing phone call is a point of particular interest for her coworkers and family. Though her family doesn't know what happened, they do think that something was wrong. In the video, some suspect that the clothes Rebecca was wearing didn't belong to her. Some believe that the clothes were large, likely belonging to a man. And some of the crew's stories seem to support this. Rumors about Rebecca and how she spent her free time began to float out. Apparently, some believe that she was involved in a very complicated love triangle with an older man and another young woman, and that tensions were pretty high. The intensity of her relationship with the man seemed like a particular point of concern. It sounds like they had the kind of relationship that movies always love to include. It was deeply passionate, but with that passion came quite a few ups and downs, and I'm sure the age difference wouldn't help with that. Rebecca would be on top of the world one minute and devastated the next. Crimes of passion are not uncommon, and some people believe that this is what happened with Rebecca. Whether Rebecca was killed by the man after an altercation, or perhaps killed in a fit of jealousy, it's certainly possible, assuming that these rumors were true. Unfortunately, cruise ships are a fairly effective environment when it comes to making someone disappear. People who go overboard in these circumstances are almost never recovered. The ocean is just too big. At least some of Rebecca's old crew believe that she was murdered and thrown over the side of the ship. And this is where the plot thickens. Remember how Disney has all those cameras everywhere? Well, that isn't their only security measure. In fact, crew members later told an investigator that all of the calls on board the ship were recorded. Rebecca's call was made on an internal phone, which meant that it would have been recorded as well. So what happened to the tape, and why wasn't it shared? As far as the public knows, no tape was ever handed over with the phone call, despite the fact that it would likely explain why Rebecca was so upset and who she was talking with right before she disappeared. Was she calling someone's room? Or someone else aboard the ship? Some say she was calling a friend, but without the evidence, we just don't know. And more importantly, what was going on that had her so upset right before she disappeared? Though there are plenty of people who believe that Rebecca was killed or died in an accident, there's always that one other possibility. With how upset Rebecca appeared, some wondered if her death might have been a suicide instead. There isn't really any evidence to support this. At least there wasn't. But it's something that we at least have to consider given her appearance before she disappeared from the ship. In her room, Rebecca had presents and gifts for a later trip with her parents, and everyone knew her to be bubbly and overall happy. At least, that was what everyone believed for the 6 years following her death. All those years later, her girlfriend spoke out to share some very interesting details. She told journalists that Rebecca regularly took drugs and that she had actually considered suicide several times. Her former girlfriend believes that she took her own life. It's unclear if this really was the case because the information came out so much later, but it certainly puts everything in a new light. And then again, there's also the theory that she never died at all. After finding her family's page for her, someone actually contacted them, telling them that they were absolutely certain that they saw Rebecca in another country, and that she was alive. Her family was really upset by this because it seemed fairly credible what the person was saying, but it was never proven, and as far as we know, Rebecca obviously did not make it. Rebecca's friends and family feel strongly about the fact that her investigation was handled poorly, and they have brought that to the media, to the courts. It's definitely been an ongoing fight for them. They believe that Disney knows more than it's letting on, and that investigators should have asked around more to find information about what happened. Their initial efforts really only included questioning a few crew members, but they didn't question anybody else aboard the ship. No one talked to any guests, which could easily have been potential witnesses. And if I had to guess, I would assume it was because Disney didn't want their guests to be bothered with it. To this day, there is no real way to know what exactly happened out there. Rebecca was simply alive one second, making plans for an obviously bright future, and then the next, she was gone. Maybe someday we'll be able to find out the truth from someone who's tired of carrying the weight of those secrets. Or maybe it'll just be somebody who doesn't work for Disney anymore. But for right now, we're still left waiting. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Cruise ships really are not as safe as you probably think they are. People disappear, people get killed, and when this happens, they are almost never found. Before you board a cruise line after the pandemic clears up, be sure that you're prepared for all of the possibilities, even the ones that include you disappearing. If you want to talk about deadly cruises, Disney movies, or the frightening height of waves out on the ocean, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram using the tag @DapPod. To enjoy ad-free listening, don't hesitate to head over to my Patreon at patreon.com/like and inscribe. And of course, stay safe out there.